Astarte. I'm from Palmerston North and I'm here in Levin, not at the Palmerston North event. How's that? Yeah. My brief is to talk to you about the TPPA and intellectual property. Yeah, that was my brief, and I will be brief on the intellectual property bit. What I'll tell you a little bit more about is how it's going to affect you. Picture this. I want you all to have a go at feeling. Feel how it is when somebody pinches your photographs off a website or off Facebook. What if somebody stole your pictures and used them on their own website? Perhaps they even used them to make money. How does that feel? Sucks a bit, doesn't it? Yeah? Come on, let's have some interaction here. Does it suck to have someone nick your pictures? Yes. Good. It's a bit like having your house burgled, isn't it? And they come in and they take the pictures off the wall. Next thing you see them on sale at the local junk shop. Doesn't feel good. The bad news is that the TPPA isn't going to make any difference to that. Why? Because a bunch of activists in America decided that freedom on the internet is more important than protecting our intellectual property. So the TPPA doesn't even address that little item of keeping your pictures safe on the internet. So nothing's going to change there. Besides which, if you get your pictures stolen from your house, the police will say, "Oh yes ma'am, let's write down the details," and they'll look for the perpetrator. But if you get your pictures stolen off the internet, they say, "Sorry lady, it's a civil action, we can't do anything." So nothing we can do at all, nothing's going to change there. Now, don't incriminate yourself, I don't need you to put your hand up here. But if you have nicked pictures off the internet, just bear in mind what you're doing. I think the best way that we can be responsible for intellectual property is to look after each other. By all means, if it's a relative and they've posted a picture of family, I'm sure they won't mind sharing that. But don't nick other people's intellectual property and use it for your own gain. It's not cool. I've actually checked on Dr. Jane Kelsey's blog. Has anybody else here looked at Dr. Jane Kelsey's blog? If you haven't, do. She writes beautiful, clear English that you can understand. No jargon, no sort of intellectual stuff that's difficult to understand. Check out Dr. Jane Kelsey's blog. There is some good news, you see. On advice from lawyers, US proponents of TPPA backed down on banning parallel imports. So the TPPA isn't all bad. Copyright protection in other areas. There's something called the Mickey Mouse Clause. I was rather tickled by this name, Mickey Mouse Clause. I think you might remember that. When a book or something else was printed, the intellectual property was copyrighted for the entire life of the person who wrote it, author, plus 50 years. That was pretty good. Does anyone remember The Wind in the Willows, when that became free to use? Kenneth, what's his name, Graham? The guy who wrote it had died 50 years previously, and suddenly his material was available for everybody to use, everybody to quote. People would use the book. There was a movie made, Wind in the Willows movie, because the intellectual, or the copyright, had ceased. That's all very well. But Disney want the copyright to be extended for another 20 years. Why? Because it's been almost 50 years since Walt Disney himself passed away, and the copyright is about to expire. Disney's a bit miffed about this, so they're asking for an extension of 20 years, so they've got another 20 years to reel in the royalties. So who's talking here? Big business. TPPA is supporting that. Doesn't give the rest of us much of a chance. And they want to change the law just to help out Disney. The industrial law changes include the Hobbit Law. Have you heard of the Hobbit Law?
No.
The Hobbit Law was passed when Peter Jackson wanted to film the movie here in New Zealand, and overseas unions were not very happy about it. Things were changed very, very quickly. They rushed through a new law in Parliament to make it possible for Peter Jackson to keep the movie here. Great in some respects, but not very good necessarily for the workers and the unions. Having said that, the TPPA will make it illegal to make quick law changes to protect a particular group of people. The Hobbit Law enabled New Zealand to have The Hobbit filmed here because we had to comply with overseas, but that will become impossible if the TPPA arrives here. And also, it's not very good for workers' conditions. Basically, we'd be bringing our workers' rights down to the lowest common denominator. Do we want to be working in sweatshops like they do in China? Not much, I think. So there's a clear case here that workers' rights are at risk under the TPPA. So why should we say no to the TPPA, other than there are one or two things that we don't like about it? Let's take the example of the government deciding that they're going to provide housing for everybody. Imagine that. They're going to provide, make sure everybody has a house. They're going to produce luxury buildings, 5 bedrooms, ensuite in every bedroom for everybody. Double garage, we've all got plenty of space. Sounds good, doesn't it? But they are not going to put a kitchen in these houses. What you say? We've solved that, says the government. We've got a McDonald's and a KFC on every street corner. You won't go without food. Would you be in agreement with having that happen in this country? Probably not, because you want to eat what you want to eat. You want to be able to serve it in your house, prepare it in your house. This is what they're asking of us with the TPPA. They're providing us a blanket set of rules. If we take the good stuff, we also take the bad stuff. Is that okay? Do you want that? Not much. If you don't want that, what is there to do about it? Here we are, a bunch of people, a small group of people here today. What are we going to do about it? The most important thing we can do is let everybody know what's happening. How many people do you know who haven't got a clue what the TPPA is? 1, 2, 10, 20, 50? Lots of people do not know what the TPPA is. Whose responsibility is it to tell them? Are the newspapers going to tell them? No. Is television going to tell them? No. It's your responsibility to tell them. How can you tell them? Tell them by posting on Facebook if you've got a Facebook. Post on Twitter if you've got a Twitter account. Post on any social media. Go and talk to the newspapers. If enough people show an interest, the newspapers will maybe start to listen. We are responsible for making the change. If you don't want luxury 5-bedroom houses with no kitchens or something similar, then you have to make sure that isn't going to happen. Because let's face it, John Key, Tim Grosser, they are ready, their pens are poised. They are waiting for the right opportunity. And they want to get it done before the end of this year. How will you make sure it's not going to happen? You have to tell everyone. Have discussions in the supermarket queue. Ask people, have you heard of the TPPA? If they haven't, have a little sheet of paper with a few websites on that they can go and check out. Give them a bit of a brief on it. Because if it goes through, we're not going to like the changes. It may look good in the short term, but down the track we're going to be in the same sort of shit as Canada has been. So you must take action. Every single one of you. Talk to people. Let people know what it's about. That's me done for the day.